Hi, I'm Dylan.
Hi, I'm Martin.
Hi, I'm Neil, and this is Youth on Subjects of the World. And so, welcome.
And so, welcome. Sweet.
So we're gonna talk about
we're talking about
Mark
things.
Zuckerman.
Zuckerberg we just talked on the phone about this, Dylan. It's Zuckerberg.
I don't.
Oh, Dylan. Mark Zuckerberg's getting angry and Dylan's gonna lag.
I know, right? I just heard that. It's like Mark Zucker, and then it cut off.
Mark Zuckerman.
Dylan? Zuckerberg.
You made Zucky angry, man.
Yeah, I made the Zuck.
He's really.
How do you
Aren't we also talking about, what is it, Dylan? You just told me, I forgot.
Syria.
Syria. Yeah, I know about Syria. I was on a Model United Nations conference that was about the Syrian civil war, and we wrote a resolution on it. It was really fun, so.
We were talking about it in
about
school
that.
a little bit. That's why I met with Brian.
So, and also about the bombings that were authorized by the UN and the United States and the United Kingdom are all like, pew pew. So.
It's like, hey, guys, look at us. Syria's like the biggest military threat. That's why we have to fund our military. Add another $1 trillion to the budget. Syria's the biggest. It's like the biggest threat we've had in years. This is a third world country. It's gonna blow us up.
I think Dylan's as big as mine.
That's why we gotta spend billions of dollars just to protect ourselves from Syria. Okay.
Have you seen the comparison tweets of him from 2013 to now?
Trump?
Yeah.
No, but I do know he used to be a Democrat, which is really weird.
No. So in 2013, there are about like 15 tweets of him aggressively yelling at Obama for attacking Syria and how stupid that is.
That seems really well. The situation has changed, actually.
Well, the situation has changed. It's also an example of the hypocriteness that politicians have.
You mean hypocrisy?
It's hypocriteness.
Hypocriteness.
Yeah.
But I would agree with you there. It's like, I feel like politicians, I mean, it's okay to change your opinion, but I feel like politicians in general are so reluctant to admit the situation's changed, I was wrong then, I'm right now. Like, no one will ever admit anything like that. No. And even if, I feel like no politician's ever going to go back on their word and say, especially Trump, first of all.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
To try to just go off of what I said a little bit more before you got triggered by hypocriteness.
Hypocrisy.
Basically, I don't like politicians, and I think very few people, I think everyone says, oh, I don't like politicians, but I think very few people realize that no politician is telling the truth. And if they are telling the truth, the chances are the truth for them is going to be something.
There's a really horrifying list, going off what you're saying, Martin, there's a really horrifying list of like a bunch of lies that every single president has told and a bunch of horrible things that every single president has done. And it's just like, how are these people getting into office? And you just wonder how these people...
Neil, shit in, you get shit out. When you have shit people, you get shit leaders.
Well, that's the weird thing, though. It's like you look at the average person, and the average person actually is
Whoa, dude, your mic just got super filtery. What just happened?
Is it still okay? Is it okay now?
Like, I can hear you, but it's just really weird. It sounded like if you had, like, a mixer, like a sound mixer, someone just, like, filtered out just your voice out of the rest of the background noise that was also there.
So the background noise was there, but my voice was gone?
No, the other way around.
Oh, well, that's, like, a really good thing.
Yeah, but it just sounds really weird. Anyways, continue.
My crappy 99-cent headphones with a huge knot in the middle just did a good thing for like 5 seconds, apparently.
Your microphone just got significantly worse for me.
Yeah. It started out filtering, and now since then it's gotten worse. But anyways, continue. I can still understand what you're saying, hopefully.
Yeah, so what was I saying? I was saying something about, if you look at the average person, though, when it comes to things like politicians and in comparison to politicians, I mean, I just think that the average person at least can be honest to an extent. Yes, everyone has their faults and are going to be dishonest to an extent, but the average person in general is a lot more, and there's a lot more, forget honesty, there's a lot less morally reprehensible things than politicians. You can look at politicians that just do, forget in their presidency, but just in general are morally reprehensible people. It's really just mind-boggling how these people get into positions of power. And it makes you wonder about the human mind and who, I mean, we all say then why isn't just someone else like me who runs for president? Well, then I guess you could ask yourself, why don't you run for president? And they say, oh, I don't have what it takes or whatever. Maybe the people that have what it takes have to have like a few screws loose. Maybe the people that want to run a country, that have the ability to go up here and do all these things, maybe they just have to have a few screws loose.
Yeah, to me, I've been saying this for probably about 4 years now, that I think the reason why we always get, like, there's always a good amount of people who are horribly angry at the president is because in order to actually want the job of president, you have to have some issues. Like, if you want to be in charge of everything, then you probably have some prior existing issues.
You know, speaking of that, there's a video on YouTube called The Rules for Rulers by CGP Grey. And it's like 20 minutes long. It's amazing. It basically talks about how if you take the throne, if you act upon the throne acts upon you. And it's the same thing with dictatorships and democracies. And it really lays out how you can go up there with an intent to do good, but you're never going to get there, or you're never going to be able to sustain your position if you just do the good for the good of the people. Democracies, it's to a lesser extent, as in with democracies, it's less of a problem with now I have to do what's good for me and not what's good for the actual people. And I have to do what's good for my, lobbyists and supporters. It's to a lesser extent than dictatorships and things like that, but it's there. So it really just acts upon you. Who knows? Maybe a bunch of these presidents went up there with the intent to do good, but the throne acts upon them. And maybe humanity and their psyche cannot even handle running a country of 300 million people. Maybe our psyches can't handle that. Who knows? Or maybe we're just judging them too harshly. I mean, it's really interesting to look at how an average person can become the president and change them in so many ways. Or maybe even they just change how we see them.
Well, I liked I like this one guy. What's his name? Gad Saad. He's a professor of, I think, like evolution, like biological evolution, and he was talking
evolutionary biology.
What?
I was just saying, like, evolutionary biology. Yeah.
And he was talking about like our evolution and how we've created like even in times without tribes and packs, we kind of already have our packs.
Just making friends in general does that.
Yeah, and he was saying that like it's like when we were hunter-gatherers, tribes could only be about as big as 200 people and as small as 20 people, because if it was less than 20 people, it didn't matter if you were at the top of that. Like, it didn't matter if you were the top of the tribe. But if it's above 200, then it just seems like too impossible, and then you're just too much of a god.
Yeah, especially with no modern technology.
Yeah, with no modern technology. So now that our tribes are like, I mean, you can almost call America a tribe of almost 300 million people.
Yeah, and India and China are tribes of over 1 billion people.
Yeah, like, you definitely have smaller ones within those tribes. Like, you have, like, your high school friends, your friend group.
Yeah.
But then, like, you still have this one hierarchy, this social hierarchy.
Yeah.
And it's, like, it's gotten way out of whack because you're never supposed to have a social hierarchy where you can be the leader of 300 million people. It just doesn't, it won't work out the way you want it to.
When it comes down to it, when you really look at our history and things, I mean, it's really fascinating when it comes down to it, because you realize that what we really are just monkeys with, and we evolved to survive better with having slightly better brains than the other monkeys. And now, we literally have the ability to ask and examine our questions. Humanity is the one race on Earth who can look at their life and wonder, why does my life have meaning? All the other animals, they just go, my life has meaning because it's my life. They can't even do that because they haven't developed the language that we have. Yeah. I mean, it's insanity. First of all, brains, the only reason our brains developed is for survival and for, I mean, it's simply an evolutionary advantage. That's it. Because when you look at it, like an AK-47 is a tool of our brain. It really is a tool of our brain. Modern civilization, they're all byproducts of our brain. For like, there are these creatures, I forget what they're called, but they're like tadpoles in the sea, and they swim around, and then they plant themselves on a rock, and they grow into like a coral type thing. But do you know when they do when they get there? Because they eat their own brain and then grow, because their brain is no longer evolutionary. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's no longer needed, but because they need their brain to swim around. But when they plant themselves to a rock and they start growing, they just eat their brain for nutrition because they don't need the brain because they're not moving anymore. And it's just fascinating. It really shows you that evolution prioritizes survival more than cognition. And it's very interesting. It's fascinating.
That is.
We're really just a byproduct. I mean, our brains are here to help us survive, and it has. The average life expectancy on planet Earth is 71 years old. That's insane. It used to be like in our 30s, our mid-30s. And now, I mean, they say that it's possible that the first person to live to 150 may still be alive because of gene therapy and modern medical science. And in more developed parts of the world, the average life expectancy is even higher, like 89 years in Japan, in some parts of Japan. I think the average male, either male or female life expectancy in Japan is 89 years old. That's insanity. And the fact that we're living this long, it's a testament to our brains. And, you know, I mean, heck, if you look at our radio signals and how far out they go.
I mean, heck.
I mean, heck, if you look at the radio signal from our Earth and how far out they go, we've reached out to many parts of to a large part, relatively speaking, a large part of space, and our radio signals have reached there. I mean, pretty good for monkeys with slightly bigger brains. I mean, this is all just byproduct.
Yeah. Something that I bring up quite a lot when talking about pretty much anything, because I personally think that's what our society's downfall is going to be, is artificial intelligence. And it's quite interesting to think about the fact that by 2050, there's a 50% chance that an artificial superintelligence or an ASI will exist that would be infinitely smarter than a human's brain can comprehend. And it's like that, we literally can't comprehend the scale of that. And the thing is, we are going to be the ones to create that. So something that, it's even hard to comprehend, like you can say it, but it's still hard to comprehend the fact that you can say humans are going to create something infinitely smarter than them. Like, they're going to be smart enough to create something that can be smarter than them. Like,
that's pretty crazy.
That's really, like, just saying that feels strange.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think, like, evolution, like, when it comes to evolution and such, as we were kind of talking about, like, the next step, we're probably not going to get to a next step because we're either going to, like, there's a lot of things going against us in our survival as a species, on Earth at least. And, like, it's interesting to think that the next step in evolution could be induced and not even be from us. And they're also making advances on artificial intelligence on the brain, but that sounds terrifying and way more sci-fi-ish than anything else.
Yeah, neural implants that could actually make our cognition, or there's even hypothetical things talking about how we could reach a technological point of singularity, where basically all human consciousness would be uploaded to this.
Like a hive mind?
Yeah, and we'd all be a singular computer. Now, that'd be pretty awesome.
No, it would not.
No, wouldn't.
Yes, that would.
No! Are you serious?
That would
yes,
suck.
I am. That would be awesome. We would still exist in our own bodies, but we'd have a copy of our brain to live on forever. It'd be like a copy machine.
So, but here's the thing that's interesting to think about it, now that you mentioned, like, the whole live forever thing. There are a lot of people who want AI for, like, that purpose. Like,
I do see a big problem with AI, and let me tell you the big problem with AI. one of them is this is a big one, is one programmer goes, oopsie, and turns the AI into like a genocide mode. Like,
Yeah.
obviously it won't be like that exact way, but there was this video by, actually Martin, you showed me this, by Boy in a Band, and he basically, he was saying how he made an example of how a single mess up in the programming could make even a stupid machine that doesn't have self-awareness destroy humanity. And it wouldn't, like, I mean, it's hypothetical and it seems stupid when you think about it, but when you think about how fast technology is advancing and how if you look at the amount of time that humanity has been working with sticks and stones, and then when we got a little taste of technology, we boomed into an advanced civilization in the span of a few hundred years, that's insanity. That's the short amount of time that we've advanced is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Now, I do see benefits to an AI. Like, it could be, like, if we imagine aliens coming down to us, like super intelligent aliens, if they were to help us, because let's be honest here, if aliens come all this way, why would they come to make war? But if aliens come down to help us, my biggest concern would be a stupid human messing it all up. I think that's a big concern with AI for me. AI might see us as creatures that they can help. Maybe we can help. We can't even comprehend how they would think. I highly doubt they'd just be like genocide. Yeah, that could be a problem, but
the thought in that said video, and the thought that was also proposed by Elon Musk, who's like, and also proposed by Bill Gates and Stephen Hawking, so 3 of like the smartest people, is that it's not like a hateful of humans thing. It's just kind of like just a natural, like, if you figure out something has the power to destroy you, like, hey, wait a second, if this human decides they don't want me, they can turn me off, and that would be bad. Like, just, it's hard for us to comprehend what, like, the other thing is speculation is stupid, because it's literally impossible for us to comprehend what that, like, say this super intelligent being would even decide is worth it, or like what would be necessary in any situation.
Yeah. Which is why, if we're going to advance, you need to take precautions, massive precautions.
But to go back a little bit to our original point before I brought up AI, because I pretty much always managed to do that. When it comes to things like, back to like Syria, which is what we originally talking about, I feel like people go back and forward. I think everyone, for the most part, does not want to go to war with Syria. But I think something that a lot of people fall into is get mad at Donald Trump for going to war attacking Syria, and then like being like completely fine with Obama doing the same thing.
Drone strikes and stuff like that, yeah.
Yeah, and then like do these, like, just vice versa, reverse those two things.
It's somehow,
the same amount of hypocrisy.
Somehow Obama shoots like 3,500 missiles in the Middle East and gets the Nobel Peace Prize, and Trump shoots a few hundred and is condemned.
Well, I think the reason for that is what people don't understand about, well, I think some people do. I think a lot of people don't even realize that this is the case when, like, you're making the subconscious thought of, but, like, substance and context matters in things like politics. Like, the context of who that person is, regardless of what their ideas are, still matters. And while Obama might have killed a ton of people, he is a significantly, like, at least from the public's eye, nicer person than Donald Trump, who, let's face it, is an asshole. Like,
he is, yeah.
Whether you agree with him politically, that guy's a fucking dickhead, and pretty much anyone is going to, like, I don't see someone who's going to disagree with that. And if you are, you're gonna, that's just stupid. It would be really ridiculous to try and say that
Donald Trump isn't like
an asshole.
Yeah.
But so I think a lot of people fall into this whole, well, Donald Trump's an asshole, so even if he does something that all presidents do, it's somehow seemed as worse because to add on to the fact that he has the personality of a cartoon character that's like the villain, like a cartoon villain from the 80s. Like, he literally reminds me of someone who would be like a Smurfs villain. Like, but anyways.
Well, here's my thing with Syria. It's like, it seems like we want to have these proxy wars with these tiny third world countries like Syria. Like, why? Syria's no threat to us. They're a freaking third world country. And it's just a proxy war to go with Russia so that we can fund the military-industrial complex. Because it's like, oh, look at Syria. They're our next big threat. Let's make our military budget a few billion more. That way we can spend more money on our military because Syria is such a big threat. Same with Russia. Russia's such a big threat. Even though Russia is borderline a third world country, and Syria is a third world country.
Yeah.
And somehow we're just picking on these like tiny countries. I mean, Russia's not tiny, but Syria was a third world country. Yeah. Because we did that. We messed them up.
I think that
by putting in these proxy dictators that are just going to give us all their oil, like freaking Muammar Gaddafi and what's his name? The guy we went to.
The guy who went to.
We went to war with him because he was like an evil dictator, even though we put him there. It's like crazy. And then, like, we go to war with these freaking third world countries, and just so we can bust up our military budget so we can have a bigger military-industrial complex.
Well, the thing is with Syria is that now that definitely does probably support the military-industrial complex, but the difference with Syria than other places like the war with Iraq, which is just an absolute piece. So, I mean, let's just not even get into that. But there's a big difference, and that's because the reason the airstrikes occurred on Syria, and there was actually United Nations Security Council authorization on this, and United Kingdom also took place in airstrikes.
Well, because
so
the acid attacks, right, or the...
Yeah, because what happened? Here's the situation in Syria. So Syria has had a really, really, really oppressive government led by Bashar al-Assad. And Bashar al-Assad, basically, there's been a civil war erupted back in 2011, I'm pretty sure. I think that's the date. And a bunch of rebel coalitions that collectively called themselves the Free Syrian Army that wanted democracy rebelled against Bashar al-Assad. ISIS got in the mix, and it's been a horrible, bloody conflict. But the point is that the biggest problem has really been Bashar al-Assad's use of WMDs, no nukes. People often forget that WMDs aren't just nukes; they're like biological warfare, like acid attacks or gassing. Bashar al-Assad has done that a lot, and that has been seen as extremely unethical. The United Nations has condemned him as this horrible, brutal dictator who basically is. And what's happening is it's pretty disgusting. He's basically just going in there and he's releasing these gases and these horrible nerve agents that are killing children and their families. And it is just, I mean, it doesn't matter what kind of war it is. That's just, that's just ridiculous. He's dropping it on civilians and things like that. So that's just absolutely insane. And another reason, so the United Nations has had a really big problem with that for a long time. But Syria did have a reasonably sized military, so it would be a problem to just go in there. So what ended up happening is Russia was actually funding Syria. Russia was funding Syria, the Syrian government, which has been seen as by the international community extremely unethical. Because they're basically gassing places and doing these horrible things to civilians, and then these other places in the international community have been funding, including the United States and some other countries that I don't remember, have been funding the Free Syrian Army, which are the rebels going for a democratic government, or at least Syria without that dictator. And so what ended up happening was a massive, Bashar al-Assad launched these massive campaigns, and basically the United Nations Security Council was like, enough is enough. So the United Nations Security Council, I'm pretty sure, voted to authorize airstrikes with, I think it was the United Kingdom, France, and America. I'm not sure about France. It might have been someone else. To go with airstrikes against the Syrian government to basically try to help cripple their government to stop them from doing all this crap. And you could definitely argue that the military-industrial complex has to do something with that. And there's always something. The military-industrial complex will always have something to do with the United States' decisions, considering it's such a big part of the economy. Yeah, Martin?
Hey, anyone else notice that Patrick Swayze is like watching this over my shoulder?
I just noticed that now, yeah.
Yeah, I just noticed it too in the camera. This is like a poster my grandmother made of all of like famous dead people. And apparently he's just staring at this very
Into our souls or
interesting. Okay, continue.
Yeah, so I think that you can definitely argue that the military-industrial complex had a big part to play in this. And look, the military-industrial complex is always going to have a part to play in American politics because it's such a massive and important part of the United States economy. And especially with rising powers like China and India looking to take over the U.S. economy before 2050, the U.S. definitely wants to keep their economy strong. And, well, let's be fair here. There's really no way right now, feasibly, the United States is going to be able to stop China and India from overcoming their economy in the future. However, with that being said, with the U.S. wanting to maintain a military-industrial complex as it's integrated into the United States economy and Wall Street in general, I really think that you can't I don't think, look, especially countries that have been around for a while, are always going to have their problems. And we always tend to look at what countries do in a very pessimistic way, which we should, because everything should go under a critical eye. But I think at this point, I think it's fair to say, especially with the United Nations backing this, I think it's fair to say that I would never call it ethical. I guess I have a problem with calling it ethical killing people, but I would say it doesn't have as much to do with, just the military-industrial complex as other things. Now, that being said, I still think we should look at, under a critical eye at everything. But with all this stuff been going on since 2011, and this whole war started off with the Syrian government opening fire at protests in Damascus of people. They're just peacefully protesting democracy. The Syrian government opened fire. The Syrian government sent people in to open fire on those protests. And now does the United States government and other governments know how to handle a crippled power that now needs a new government? No, they don't. They have proven time and time again. They have no idea what they're doing. They have absolutely no idea what they're doing. They're so stupid.
Neil, calm down.
That being said, that doesn't mean that these airstrikes are, I think that these airstrikes are, and President Trump, surprisingly, gave a really good speech, I think, actually, when he authorized this. I don't know who wrote his speech or whatever, but it was top notch. And he did say, I thought it was pretty good, which is really surprising to me. But I thought it was I thought it was good, and I thought it was respectful. And so, yeah. I'm just going to turn off.
Neil's a Trump supporter.
Not a Trump supporter.
Trump.
So, real quick.
Yeah?
To go off of the Syria thing for a little bit and bring up another point that everyone on this show wanted to talk about is the Zuckerberg stuff.
Not Zuckerman, Dylan. Zuckerberg.
It's Zuckerman, Neil.
That we have to
more than you.
It is Zuckerberg.
That we should probably talk about. I personally think if you're mad at Mark Zuckerberg, then why did you sign up for Facebook in the first place? What did you expect? Why did you give your information out if you didn't want him to use it? Like, what did you expect him to do? I personally have literally no problem with the information I willingly gave being used to, show me things in my newsfeed I'd be interested in. Like, what's the problem with me getting advertisements for stuff that Facebook thinks I'm interested in based off of what information I've given out?
I don't think these people understand that that's exactly what Google does, but to the nth degree.
Yeah. Although,
go ahead.
One really creepy thing happened to me yesterday. So I have this friend who I just met a couple days ago, and we were exchanging contacts because we live in different towns. So he gave me his contact and wrote in his name and stuff. And we don't have a lot of mutual friends or anything like that. And that night, without me mentioning his name or anything like that at all on Facebook, in my recommended for you friends list, he was there. and there was no mutual friends and no mutual page likes, and like other than the fact that it was the same guy.
Yeah, that is weird. I mean, it could just be a coincidence by it linking through other things and finding a recommendation, but if it isn't, that is...
That's what I thought, and then I actually thought about it for a second. Okay, I just met this guy 3 days ago.
Okay, yeah, that's messed up.
Like, yeah. So the thing with that, though, is what, like, I personally don't have a problem with that. It doesn't bother me at all that Facebook is recommending me friends that are my friends. Like, if I know the person, it doesn't bother me at all if they're recommending me to friend request them. I mean, that's what Facebook is there for. But I do need to, like, it does make me a little concerned that it, without me giving any of that information to Facebook directly, that it has that information. I mean, I'm not a serial killer or anything, so it's not like there's any information I have to hide that I don't want Facebook leaking. But it is a little strange to me that, like, that managed to get on Facebook. So I just wanted to know what your guys' opinions are on it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not really on any social media because I get too compulsive with it. I get very, very compulsive, so that's why I'm not really on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat or any of the above. And also, it's definitely weird sometimes, like, I remember one time I specifically turned off, so my phone couldn't see where my location was.
Yeah.
I just turned that off because I was like, I don't want to deal. Like, I don't know why. I just didn't want it to follow me. I just think that's kind of creepy. Something to know, like, where I am. Not like I went anything weird. I just went on a bike ride.
Yeah.
That's part of the story is a bike ride. So I turned off my location. Then I get back from my bike ride, and it says, Siri will help you plan your next bike ride. I was like, what the fuck? How would it even know I went on a bike ride?
Well, I think what it does is that it tracks, like, how fast you go, and that's the same way, like, Waze and other apps track, like, when you're driving, when you're walking, and things like that. And
You don't think that's part of, like, the location?
I think it's, like, a violation of privacy for them to, like, in the law, for them to have location. I mean, how would location contribute to the fact of them knowing if you're riding a bike or not?
Yeah.
Still creepy.
A funny meme that kind of describes how I feel about this. Do you guys know the Spider-Man meme where it's two Spider-Mans and they're pointing at each other like in a parking lot?
No.
No.
Oh, you don't know that meme where there's like two animated Spider-Man and it's like, oh, okay. Well, it's this meme and there's two Spider-Mans and they're pointing at each other accusingly in the parking lot. And the meme caption was the U.S. government lecturing Mark Zuckerberg about violating people's privacy. And it was, so like that kind of like, I feel like, well, Mark Zuckerberg himself, I don't think actually violated anyone's, like, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg is some crazy guy who wants to just, like, leak everyone's data everywhere. But I do know that, like, it could be very possible that he made, like, agreements or deals or, like, licensing things to people. And, like, I mean, it sounds really tinfoil hat wearing, but, like, I think as we all just described, I'm pretty sure we've all had a moment where it feels like there is something in our phone that's listening to us, even if we turn off all the stuff that makes it, like all the stuff that we know is listening to us, like all of that stuff is off. We still can have things like that. And there was something a couple years ago where like apparently Safari's like always listening or something. But then there's the theory that Siri, in order to understand what you're saying, so when you say, hey Siri, Siri's just always on, listening to everything you say.
Yeah, so actually I have an interesting...
But one second, let me finish. But Siri does not have the processing power to understand that, so it just transfers the words and sentences that you say to a different server to be, like, understood, and then that, like, sets up the marketing and sells that information to marketing companies. That's the thing that I read earlier in the week, and that sounds super conspiracy theory-ish, but it actually sounds like I don't know. Like, what do you have to say, Neil, about it?
So basically, I'm pretty sure that it's not even like a conspiracy theory. I'm pretty sure that's a fact. To give you an example of proving it's not with Siri, but with Google Home. So what I did was this is an interesting case experiment, but basically Google Home has this feature where you can actually go back onto the Google Home app. And you can look at a bunch of things like questions that you asked, and another thing coming with looking at the questions that you asked is you can also look at you can also hear the recordings of you asking the questions. So it was yeah. So it's really interesting, and I'm sure all of you know this, that the Google app comes up when you say, "Okay, Google," or "Hey, Google."
Yeah.
So what happens is that I turn on the recording, like I just wanted to hear myself say it, and there was a bit of, and then so I can hit play, and it went like this. Shh, I could hear background noise, and then, "Okay, Google," da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So it was recording before I said, "Okay, Google," but it went back and it got the part where I said, "Okay, Google," but a little bit before then you could hear the background noise and everyone talking. So I think it has to be listening before. I mean, it was just really, I mean, my heart went into my stomach when I heard that. I was like, oh crap, it's listening.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, and I think it has to do that in order for it to say, "Okay, Google." So I think it's really,
like
Go
when
ahead.
I'm using my phone, I definitely think of it as like, and just in the internet in general, I basically am thinking to myself, it's like a trade. It's like a deal. It's like, am I willing to give up basically my privacy and a lot of my free time, basically to have near infinite information?
Yeah, I think
And
of it
like,
exactly like that as well.
and it's like, am I willing to make that trade? And on one hand, it seems like giving up all your privacy is a bad thing, but it's like near infinite knowledge is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, getting access to the collective of human knowledge, the
Like
collective
being able to
base
know
of
everything
knowledge. I
that
mean,
humans have ever known.
I know, at the tips of your fingers, you can access historical dates and all these cool things and learn about things. I mean, I really like, as you know, Dylan, definitely, I really like nutrition. I probably wouldn't be pursuing that if it wasn't for the internet. I probably wouldn't be pursuing any of, I wouldn't know any of the stuff we're talking about if it wasn't for the internet.
Yeah,
I
like,
wouldn't know any of the stuff we're talking about.
So, as you can see here are 3 children who are speaking relatively, like, all of us, none of us are professionals on the subject, but we are all relatively well educated in these subjects. None of us are college students. None of us are like professors. We're just people who are interested in these kinds of things. And because of a tool like the internet, we're allowed and we have the freedom to research things that people in the 90s or the 80s or pretty much any time before the time we're currently living in did not have the freedom to do.
Yeah, I mean, and I really cannot stand it when there are people, who argue against the internet. Mainly, I don't mean to be stereotypical. I don't mean to, like, put people in a sect. So, bear with me while I say a lot of them, and I've argued with people like this too, the stereotypical soccer mom, that says, well, why don't you just go to the library? And when I hear that argument, my mind, I feel like I've just been dealt. That's so, so stupid. The collective knowledge base of humanity versus a thousand books maybe.
Yeah. Well, I think the reason people say things like that isn't from I think it's from a lack of understanding, obviously, but I think it's also from every generation thinks they're the best generation and that the generation after them is awful and doing everything wrong.
Yeah, it's called juvenoia. It's really interesting, and it's just, I love that.
You described this a lot before.
Why is your camera off?
My camera's off right now because I was actually at the Sudbury school that I go to. I had to stay late, and I'm going back home now, so I'm actually in the car right now, and I don't want to hold the phone up while I'm in the car while we're driving, so I just have the camera off. When I get home, I'll turn the camera back on. That'll be in about like 20 minutes.
Freaking Neil.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Juvenoia. Did you?
Yeah, you went on a big speech about it on one of the shows.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually how I found out about it.
Juvenoia is so interesting.
It's very interesting. And I think something that's interesting to think about that's kind of related to that is like, I think a lot of people, I mean, it's always a gag and like, and there's always movies and TV shows where like, there's like someone wishes to be like an Aladdin, when at the end, like the Jafar like wants to be the most powerful universe, like being in the universe, and then he becomes a genie, and like he doesn't get to use that power freely, and there's consequences for that. And like it's always that gag of like people wanting something and then like not understanding the consequences, and then getting mad at those consequences, even though it was their own fault. And I think that like the nature of Facebook, it's a social network where you give your information out to find and connect with people. Like, so I don't understand how people...
I think people seem to have this, like, they seem to have this ignorance about them where they think that, oh, I just go on Facebook and if I keep my account private, it's private. No, you're literally, what do you think that terms of agreement thing which you check and you never read is? I mean, seriously, Facebook is providing a free service to connect to anybody else that has an account in the world, and you're arguing about them using advertisements.
Yeah. Also, you can turn off third-party ads, can't you?
Yes, you can even. I don't recommend it because it literally makes the internet harder to be profitable. But you can literally just turn on ad block. Yes, you can. You can. You can turn on ad block. It's a very simple plugin. Even an idiot can install it.
Yeah. I don't
What's that music in the background?
Oh, I've been listening to music this whole time. You didn't know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I like
to
keep it on.
Yeah, no, I've been listening to semi-relevant political music like this whole time.
Is there such a thing as political music?
Yes.
What?
You didn't know that?
No, I never knew of such a thing as political music.
Oh yeah, there's this great libertarian metal band called Backwards.
Libertarian metal band. I don't think I thought I would never hear that in the same sentence.
I know.
Libertarian metal band.
Yeah, they're so good though. They're anti-statist. Do you know who Eric July is?
No.
Oh, well, he's like a really, really great anti-statist libertarian guy, and he's like the singer of that band. Anyways, but I think people just, when they make a mistake, naturally I think they just decide to blame everything instead of just taking responsibility.
I know. Well, that's human nature.
Yeah, and that's human nature, but when it gets on like a Congress level, when when freaking 33-year-old guy who made a website so he could connect Harvard students has to testify before Congress to explain to Congress how the internet works. Have you seen the compilations of him having to explain how the internet works?
Yeah.
I mean, I've watched some pretty
it's all these senators freaking old farts trying to make themselves.
I know. It's so stupid. I remembered. I was watching this congressional hearing. I'm sorry, my voice is breaking up because it was so funny and so stupid. So basically, it was a congressional. It wasn't a hearing. It was a congressional meeting on what NASA could do if an asteroid were to strike Earth. And there was this congressional representative from like a southern state, and I remembered he was just really old. He had this scraggly white hair, and I'm not saying that that's a determining factor, but what he said was, so he just said, "Excuse me, I have a question." And he said, "I heard that from a scientist that we could," this is exactly what he said, "I was hearing from a scientist friend of mine that we could use lasers to break up both the asteroid before it hit." I'm just thinking, oh my god, man. What the heck is this?
What?
Yes, he's like, and he says lasers. He doesn't say lasers, he said lasers. And it's so stupid. It's like this guy went to like a first grade school, and the kids are raising their hands and asking questions, like really stupid questions.
At the ranks in the sky.
Exactly. And it's just like, how do our representatives and representing us in the government not have like a basic knowledge of how lasers work? Lasers aren't kinetic. They can just blow things up. That would require enough like mass and enough energy.
Dylan, is he turning into a robot for you?
Only a little bit.
Yeah, but,
Martin, you just turned into a robot for me. That's weird. Well, I have 2 bars, so
it's not that weird.
Although, thankfully, I don't have the video on. If I had the video on, it'd probably be worse.
Yeah. But I don't know. I find it interesting how much people just don't understand. Like, it's the same thing. I don't want to talk about gun control because we talk about gun control so much.
Yes. Oh dear God. Let's please not.
But just to bring it up as a reference point, it's the same thing. Like, people just don't think about things. Like, people see things at face value, and unless you're someone who actually cares about it passionately,
on both sides of the movement.
What? Wait. Can you understand what he's saying, Dylan?
No, I can't.
You literally just
Peter,
sounded
what
like
about
you were
now?
speaking another language. There you go.
Okay. What happens a lot
Not
is that
anymore.
just watch. God. Okay. People just watch. Can you hear me now?
Kinda.
Okay, so people just like watch these things on the news, and then they're just like, "Oh my God, I just watched this thing on the news, and it said it's true."
Oh. And he's gone.
Freaking Neil.
Jeez. I just watched something on the news and leaves. Yeah.
Was that
Oh, you're back.
added on such authority? Really, kind of like it kind of
Neil,
pisses me off.
Neil, stop. You realize you just left the call and rejoined.
I did.
Yeah, and you're really laggy.
That's irritating. Well, I have one bar right now. I don't understand. I'm in like urban. Like I'm in urban.
Dude,
it
I
shouldn't
can't.
be like.
You're lagging a lot. Just stop talking for a minute.
Stop talking, okay?
Just shush, Neil. Jeez. But yeah, I feel really bad for Mark Zuckerberg because, like, obviously I don't know him personally and I don't work for Facebook, so I don't know how he, like, treats his employees or anything like that. But he seems like a genuinely nice guy and a smart guy. And while I don't agree with him politically, I don't expect anything different because he's, like, pretty much just a regular guy.
Just a left-wing dumb shit.
He's just like he's like a regular millennial.
Mm-hmm.
And like he's being put forward in front of Congress as like this regular guy, and he's just like, "Why are you violating these people's privacy? Why are you doing this? Let me tell you how the internet works, sir."
Yeah, that's basic. Like, so I don't have a problem with people based off of their political opinion.
It's like don't get mad at me when you put all your when you make all your information public, and then I use that information to give me an advantage, even though it's all public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me when I literally use the information that you made public to everybody, and I use it to help you get the good advertisements that you would click on. Oh, I'm so sorry. I helped you.
And even as someone who is like very against like liberal and super democratic bias that's like everywhere right now and like really angry about that, Ted Cruz like talking point to him about like how you're silencing conservative voices, like that's his right. If you're really a conservative, or,
then don't
like,
go on his website. That's not. Then don't go on his website, Ted Cruz.
You can't.
Maybe stay on Twitter.
I'd
And
like
do
to say
things
too
like
that
there, if you know what I mean.
They were
Like-
saying that did you see that 60 Minutes special with the guy who was Trump's leader for the social media aspect of his campaign? He was like, yeah, so Facebook helped us out basically every step of the way to get Trump elected. He's like, we wouldn't be able to do it if they didn't do it. And he's like, he was like, we wouldn't be able to win if Facebook didn't help us all that much. And he's like, it's so funny how the liberals make this platform and then we abuse it and then they get mad when we win.
Yeah. Like, I mean, it's his fucking website. He has a right to do whatever the hell he wants with it. Like,
Yeah, Ted Cruz, don't get a Facebook account then. Why are you
Like,
being such? I mean, an
the
ass.
same argument I used
My
against
website.
people when people were getting angry about net neutrality. They want to raise their prices. They can raise their prices. They're just going to like create competition for themselves and cause a lot of problems and anger their customers, especially with the amount of backlash around
Well,
it.
the issue
But
wasn't
that's their
raising
company.
prices; it was discriminatory data. If they
But
wanted to just raise their prices, it
but
would be fine.
discriminatory data is whatever. But discriminatory data was also like, I don't think that there should be laws restricting anything. To be completely upfront with you, I think making things illegal literally just causes more problems than it solves in almost
Yeah, it
every
does.
situation.
So like a libertarian point of view you're talking about.
I have like on almost every subject I have a libertarian point of view, except for a save a few, but they're not relevant, so I'm not going to bring them up. But
Yeah.
I definitely do not, especially like, so something I don't want to get involved in, and I'm not going to state my opinion on because I really don't want to get into an argument about this, but just to bring it up, abortion. I personally disagree with abortion. I don't think it should be illegal, and I don't think we should be having problems with it, because when you make things like that illegal, you drive them underground and they become more dangerous. The same with drugs and guns and anything. Anything you make illegal, especially stuff like that, when you make it illegal, you're just going to make it.
Yeah, I know. Like I don't think I'm 100.
in the end,
I'm
cause
like you,
more
Ron. I'm not
problems.
100% for abortion. Like I don't know if I would want people to go out and start having abortions, but at the same time, like if you go to a place like Scotland where abortions are legal, like that's insane. Like people are going and they're dying, and then they're not allowed to come back to Scotland if they are found out that they had an abortion. Like people are leaving and then dying just because they want an abortion. Like it doesn't stop anything, and it kills. It ends up killing more people, and the people that really want it are going to do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really do much.
Yep.
And then you do have the kids that grow up in terrible environments and die.
Yeah. Like, the problem is, people don't, our government, there's no government system that works. The nature of a government does not work to serve the people, it works to serve.
Yeah, it's like you have to, if you really want to get rid of something, get it from the center, which is culture. Like,
yeah,
get into
culturally,
the mind of the culture. Like, same with cigarettes in Americans. Like, the teen cigarette rate is going down because cigarettes are people just think they're disgusting.
Yeah, it's no longer the cool kid thing to do. Like, why would you do this thing that's going to cause you?
Yeah, it used to be like a cool kid thing, but now it's like a cultural thing to look down upon. It's like, why would you smoke? That's just gross.
Most people are from people I've talked to, very few smoke, and the ones that do smoke are don't want to be smoking. They're smoking because they have been smoking.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays when people are making marijuana legal and the marijuana is legal in more states, and when people there's so many other options, and also the other and even more important thing is we have more information on what that causes in the long term. Hey, dipshit, smoking kills. We have that information now. Not that we didn't have some of that information, but with something like the internet, not that hard to find out that, hey, you smoke, you're pretty likely to get lung cancer, and that's not good. And it also causes a bunch of other things that are not
obesity,
good.
diabetes.
Yeah.
Heart disease.
There's a lot of things. And, right now, there are, I don't even remember what the statistic is, but it's, crazy. It's, way less people start smoking.
Yeah, because most of the time it's only the only time you start smoking is when you're a kid, but teenagers is definitely is looked down upon. At least my friend groups.
Yeah.
Why the fuck would you smoke? It just doesn't make any logical sense.
Yeah.
And then it's
I know.
just a dumbass if you start smoking when you're 45 years old.
Yeah.
Why? That makes no sense at all.
For me, I'm against doing drugs or even drinking. But that's my own personal philosophy.
Yeah, but I don't making cigarettes illegal won't do anything.
But that's exactly how, making cigarettes illegal would be the most damaging thing you can do. So, not only, America's prison population is crazy enough as it is. Imagine if we outlawed cigarettes.
I know, right? That'd be insane.
I know. The amount of people that are already addicted to that, the fallout of that would be unbelievable. First of all, it wouldn't even be able to be enforced. It would just be absolute panic. And I think if the tables were turned, and if we actually had, if marijuana had been legal and cigarettes were illegal, which actually makes more sense, but anyways, I digress. I think we would have looked we would have looked at it in the exact same way we look at it now, with why would we, like, how the anti, marijuana people campaign, like, we shouldn't let marijuana this because it's a gateway drug, and you'd be saying the exact same damn thing about tobacco, except it'd actually be worse, because tobacco's a lot worse than marijuana.
Yeah, like, I personally, like I said, I don't do any of that stuff, but I just think people are ridiculous if you say that we should outlaw those things. I think it's ridiculous to say we should outlaw anything. Like, obviously laws are going to exist and governments are going to exist, and there's nothing that we can do to change those things. But, like, our legal system doesn't really do anything. We just end up creating more problems.
Okay.
Yeah. It doesn't. That's why banning things has never solved anything. Like, try banning alcohol again.
Yeah, prohibition has never worked. I mean, we're talking about this hypothetically. Let's talk about something that actually happened. Prohibition did not work.
Yeah, it very clearly didn't work.
Yeah.
Really?
That's why alcohol is legal. Yeah.
No, alcohol is still illegal.
Yeah, alcohol is still illegal, everyone.
Bars are, like, outlawed.
And bars, they just give you, like, an ice water or whatever.
You get chocolate milk. A yoo-hoo.
A chocolate yoo-hoo. You get a strawberry yoo-hoo at a bar.
They make strawberry yoo-hoos?
Yeah, they do.
Oh, wow. Exciting. But, like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why I think laws are stupid. But with that, it's 5 o'clock, and I think we should go to break. We have a break video about Syria, but that's kind of not really super relevant because we kind of only talked about that for a short period of time. But it's a break video on Syria, and that's a thing. And,
I think
we should go to break.
But my dad came in. I think I might have to go during break. Sorry to leave you guys.
Seriously, Dylan?
Okay, well, we might only talk for a little bit post-break then.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Syria's war is a mess. After 6 years, the conflict is divided between 4 sides, each side with foreign backers, and those foreign backers don't even agree with each other on who they're fighting for and who they're fighting against. And now, Syria's use of chemical weapons has provoked President Donald Trump to directly attack Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. This is a major development because up until now, the US has only been focused on fighting ISIS. To understand the crisscrossing interventions and battle lines in Syria today and how it got this way, it helps to go back to the beginning of the conflict and watch to see how it unfolded. The first shots in the war were fired in March 2011 by Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad against peaceful Arab Spring demonstrators. In July, the protesters start shooting back, and some Syrian troops even defect from the Syrian army to join them. They call themselves the Free Syrian Army, and the uprising becomes a civil war. Extremists from around the region and the world start traveling to Syria to join the rebels. Now, Assad actually encourages this by releasing jihadist prisoners to tinge the rebellion with extremism and make it harder for foreign backers to support them. In January 2012, Al-Qaeda forms a new branch in Syria, Jabhat al-Nusra. Also around that time, Syrian Kurdish groups who had long sought autonomy take up arms and informally secede from Assad's rule in the north. That summer is when Syria becomes a proxy war. Iran, Assad's most important ally, intervenes on his behalf, and by the end of 2012, Iran is sending daily cargo flights and has hundreds of officers on the ground. At the same time, the oil-rich Arab states in the Persian Gulf begin sending money and weapons to the rebels, mainly to counter Iran's influence. Iran steps up its influence in turn in mid-2012 when Hezbollah, a Lebanese militia backed by Iran, invades to fight along Assad. In turn, the Gulf states respond, Saudi Arabia really stepping up this time to send more money and weapons to the rebels, this time through Jordan, who also opposes Assad. By 2013, the Middle East is divided between mostly Sunni powers generally supporting the rebels and Shias generally supporting Assad. That April, the Obama administration, horrified by Assad's atrocities and the mounting death toll, signs a secret order authorizing the CIA to train and equip Syrian rebels. But the program stalls. At the same time, the US quietly urges Arab Gulf states to stop funding extremists, but their requests basically go ignored. In August, the Assad regime uses chemical weapons against civilians, provoking condemnation from around the world.
Men, women, children lying in rows, killed by poison gas. It is in the national security interests of the United States to respond to the Assad regime's use of chemical weapons through a targeted military strike.
Russia proposed on Monday that Syria surrender control over its chemical weapons to the international community for its eventual dismantling to avoid a U.S. military strike.
The U.S. ends up backing down, but the whole thing establishes Syria as a great powers dispute, with Russia backing Assad and the U.S. opposing him. Just weeks later, the first American CIA training and arms reached Syrian rebels. The U.S. is now a participant in the war. In February 2014, something happens that transforms the war. An al-Qaeda affiliate based mostly in Iraq breaks away from the group over internal disagreements. The group calls itself the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, and it becomes al-Qaeda's enemy. ISIS mostly fights not Assad, but other rebels and Kurds, carving out a mini-state it calls its caliphate. That summer, it marches across Iraq, seizing territory and galvanizing the world against it. In September, 1 year after US almost bombed Assad, it begins bombing ISIS.
We're moving ahead with our campaign of airstrikes against these terrorists, and we're prepared to take action against ISIL in Syria as well.
That summer, in July, the Pentagon launches its own program to train Syrian rebels, but will only train those who will fight ISIS, not Assad. The program fizzles, showing that America now opposes ISIS more than Assad, but that there's also no like-minded Syrian proxy forces on the ground in Syria. In August, Turkey starts bombing Kurdish groups in Iraq and in Turkey, even as these Kurdish groups are fighting ISIS in Syria. But Turkey doesn't bomb ISIS. This gets to one of the big problems in this conflict. The US sees ISIS as its main enemy, but the US's allies like Turkey and a lot of Middle Eastern states have other priorities. This makes for a lot of unclear and confusing alliances. The next month, in September, Russia intervenes on behalf of Assad, sending a few dozen military aircraft to a long-held Russian base in the country. Russia says it's there to bomb ISIS, but in fact only ends up bombing anti-Assad rebels, including some backed by the US. The next year, Donald Trump wins the White House, vowing to stay out of Syria and signaling that Assad should be able to stay in power. At the end of 2016, Assad, helped by Russian air power and Iranian-sponsored militias, retakes the Syrian city of Aleppo, knocking the rebels out of their last remaining urban stronghold. Then, in spring 2017, Assad once again uses chemical weapons against his people, killing 85, including 20 children. Back in the US, Trump says his attitude towards Syria and Assad has, quote, changed very much due to the attacks. He vows to respond, and within just a few days, the White House launches dozens of Tomahawk missiles that strike an airbase in Syria. This is the first time the United States has directly attacked the Assad regime, and this adds yet another crisscrossing complication to the already multi-dimensional civil war. So as it stands now, Syria is in ruins. Even as Assad recaptures land, the rebellion perseveres, and with outside countries fueling each of the groups, it's clear that there's still no end in sight.
Hello, everyone. Neil is not back yet because someone went to the bathroom and then didn't come back. Anyways, so that was a great video that I forgot to watch, and Dylan didn't watch because I didn't send it to him, and Neil isn't here. So we're gonna just completely segue off past that. Hey, dude, we're live.
Cool. How long have we been live?
What?
80 minutes.
We've
80
been
minutes?
live. We've been live for the whole time. We just never weren't live. What are you talking about?
Oh, nice. Great.
Okay, yeah, so I'm going to completely gloss over that break video because I forgot to watch it and I didn't send it to anyone else. So, yeah, we were kind of talking about privacy a little bit before, a little bit, and by a little bit I mean a lot of it, and kind of the hypocrisy in people and laws and stuff.
Hypocrisy, Martin. Hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy.
Get it right next time.
No.
Yeah, seriously, it's extremely unprofessional.
Like the first time it was just me being tired, and now like by the second time I wanted to see if I can just make your guys' forehead veins explode. So now from now on I'm just going to purposely pronounce hypocrisy wrong.
Well,
For
Dylan
just
and
that.
I's ego are not going to let that happen, unfortunately.
Oh, are you gonna kill me?
Yeah, our egos are not big enough to like fit in one room, so they're definitely going to have a big problem with something like that.
Well, I mean,
Actually, I didn't think about this, but I have to use the bathroom, so I think I'm just gonna go anyway.
oh,
God, Dylan, what do you think I did during the break?
Sorry, I didn't have to go.
I didn't
I
think
didn't have to go to
about.
the bathroom.
I didn't
then,
think about
Neil.
this, but I have to go to the bathroom, so I'm just gonna go. Bye.
I didn't have to go 30 seconds.
You know,
I'm serious though.
You know what?
Dylan,
Listen.
is there no way you can hold it? What's wrong with you? Something's wrong with you, Dylan.
All right, well, before Neil can make fun of me anymore, bye. Thank you.
Oh. Well,
Thanks for having me.
bye, Dylan.
He's coming
Sorry.
back, right?
I don't think so.
No.
You're not coming back?
Sorry.
What the hell, Dylan? That's such bold.
My dad, I'm planning on staying the whole time.
My
My dad came in, and
It's going to take you 15 minutes to take a crap?
This is abuse.
This is
all
abuse.
right, bye.
We don't even watch you anymore, Dylan. Get the hell out of here.
Okay, so back to what we were talking about. Dylan has to take a shit. Anyways, yeah, I really don't like laws. I don't think anyone likes laws except for people who make the laws.
I think that when it comes to laws, my opinion at least when it's laws, I think that some laws are just really, well, if we're going to have, I think if we're going to have like if we're going to have a government, I think we do need to have like some laws. I don't think murder needs to be a law to tell people you shouldn't do murder because that's stupid.
Yeah.
If someone's not going to murder just because it's not a law. You're either going to murder or you're not going to murder. If you really want to murder somebody, the law is not that much of a determining factor.
Yeah.
What is a determining factor, though, is having, like the police go after you to investigate crimes. Now,
Yeah.
if you want to argue that we don't need the police, well, that's fine. But argue that you don't need the police, we don't need the government, that's fine. But I think if we have a government and we have a police force, we might as well, have some laws like murder and assault. They make, reasonable sense. But laws like drug laws, I feel like they're so stupid. Like,
to me, the way I see laws is they do more existing than they, like, I think they do more to just scare people into obeying than they actually would do if people realize they don't have that much power. Like, I'm someone who believes the police, while helpful, and the government, while helpful, I don't agree with them, and I wish they weren't a thing. But I think no matter what, they're going to be a thing because people naturally form in.
it's almost like an unavoidable thing. With
Yeah,
so many-
people naturally form a government.
Yeah.
They, like, it's not a thought process. It's just what happens. Like, I don't think people sit down and like obviously there are people sit down and make laws, but I don't think people sit down and really think about the fact
When you look
that
at the origins of a government, what happened was there were a bunch of people who were unorganized. Some guy who was charismatic and had a lot of wealth, got a big military, took over the area and made a government. Government progressively got better and better, and power went more to the people than less to the government. There still is a lot of power to the government. The power is more. And also, the video that I was talking about like an hour earlier, The Rules for Rulers by CGP Grey, that video actually is really good, and it also explains how democracy isn't better than dictatorships because of the people in power. It's better because the design of democracy and how getting votes works literally forces the politicians to treat the general public better by design. So it isn't the politicians, it's the design. Democracy itself is what makes countries and lives better. It's not the politicians.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. And that's why, so I would always recommend everybody watch The Rules for Rulers. It's such a great video.
Yeah.
But it is 20 minutes long. But I love CGP Grey, so like I would like a 40-minute long video by him.
Yeah.
So
Like, I think also going off of what you just said about loving that guy, just like to go off, like not to just completely go off of that, even though it doesn't really have too much to do with that. People have bias towards like bonds they make with people, especially if they don't like actually see, like even if you don't actually have an actual personal connection to someone, when you have like that one-way relationship with like celebrities or politicians or YouTubers, it's easy to like build them up in your head as being.
Well, I
like,
think I can explain this in a streamlined way. And also, it comes down to the fact that humans really, I mean, if somebody walks up to you, smiles, and tells them your name and shakes their hand, I feel like the general human, including ourselves, because we're all flawed, I think the general human is more inclined to listen to what something they have to say than something a random article on the internet has to say. But I think that the article on the internet might even have more of a backing than that random person. But I feel like human nature, you're more inclined to believe the random person that walks up to you, smiles, shakes their hand, and tells them your name.
Yeah. It feels more personal. That's the reason
Exactly.
for that.
I mean, humans aren't designed to sit down and, I mean, the human body isn't designed to birth the human head, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure the human head grew too much, and that's why birthing can actually have a lot of complications nowadays. So I'm not sure how true that is at this point. I think I heard that. But the point is that our brains grew too fast for comfort. Our brains weren't designed to be this huge and, well, not huge, but if you look at the brain to body ratio of animals, humans have the biggest brains by a far.
Yeah.
It's not the size of the brain, it's brain to body ratio.
Yeah.
And if you look at brain to body ratio of every animal, humans have a massive brain.
Yep.
It's just insane. The reason brain to body ratio matters, by the way, everyone, is, I say everyone, there's like 5 people watching this podcast, like half of them are just...
So, I don't even actually know who, just to go off of that, I actually don't know who watches this show.
I know. I mean,
We
like,
don't
I see every once in a while 2 members currently watching, and then on YouTube, it racks up like 50 views later. Like, we're sitting here for like 2 hours talking
The highest views that we have on YouTube is like 200 or something. I think it's the AI one.
I know. Yeah. Well, I think the first one, the political one, I think that one got the first episode. I think the first ever episode.
I was going off of YouTube, and that AI one also has a couple comments and stuff.
Like 2 comments.
Yeah, but like, I would love for this podcast to grow, to go like off of like youth voice in the media right now. People are definitely paying more attention to like children nowadays than they were. And like I personally believe it's entirely because like most of the news is left wing, and right now a lot of children's voices is like agreeing with left wing people, and that's the only reason they really care about like youth voices. But even so, like right now in our culture, people are like listening to youth.
Moderate show.
What?
I think Youth on Subjects of the World is a pretty moderate show. It's a diversion from the norm. You can't really say, like all these other people, you can always give out the argument, oh, these kids are being influenced by their parents and things. Well, I don't think you could say that about our show. Yeah. Our show is a lot more fluent, and it would be a lot harder. I mean, our parents can't write a script for this show. It's way too, and the way our conversations work, human nature, you can just tell that we're going off the cuff here.
Yeah. Like, there's a lot of reasons why our conversations flow so well. Like, and I think it's also interesting because we've had a wide variety of youth on this show. And in our first season, we had a much, much, much more diverse political
definitely
meaning. And I feel in this season, since we downgraded the cast, it seems like it's gone more towards a less like diverse range of views.
And there
I
are
think-
benefits and defects with that.
I think the benefit of that is it's nice to like hear more opinions about like the thing that bothers me about it is I feel like there's less people that are like, I think we might have alienated some of our audience because let's face it, we're definitely less liberal now than we were last
Season one.
season. Yeah. And I think for me,
And that's not saying we're right wing.
like we're definitely not right wing.
I would
I
call
think-
myself a political moderate.
Yeah, we're pretty in the middle for most of this. But
But for a lot of people, that's too right or too left.
yeah, and so something that is interesting to me is I don't feel like the show changed that much. I don't think like anyone's agenda was to make it this way. I don't know about you, but in the last year, my political beliefs have changed. Like, not a lot. Like, I was never super, super, super liberal, but I was pretty liberal. And I think the more and more I thought about things, the more and more I realized that I did not actually agree with the things that I thought were like important to me. And I think there's definitely something interesting to be said there because we are young. And I think it's a lot easier for younger people to like admit to evolution like that, like to evolution in your beliefs. I think the older you are, the harder it is to admit when you're wrong about something.
Oh, definitely.
And I think because of this, I've gotten to actually, like, my view is different now than it was a year ago. And some of my, like, changing in perception has come from conversations I've had on this show. And I think it's really interesting because I feel like most people just like to listen to things that they agree with.
And I
And
just
if you
want to...
were someone who listened to our show last year, you might not even agree with a lot of the things we say this year because it's such a wide, it's such a difference. And I think that's because out of all of the people, if you think about something enough, and if you just look at the facts for most issues, you're probably going to come into the middle. And I'm not saying that all of our opinions are facts because that's not true. It
Yeah,
would
that's
sound really
definitely...
arrogant to say that.
And it would
but-
be arrogant to say that, yeah.
Yeah, but it is definitely true to an extent that if you are just looking at facts, you're probably going to be a lot more middle of the road than if you're going off of the things that you like. If you're someone who's like a Democrat and you look for things that other Democrats believe in, whereas if you're someone who isn't anything and you're just looking for the fact, it's a lot easier to actually get the truth.
And I think, I really think that, and I mean, speaking of what we're talking about, I mean, our knowledge, none of that would be possible if it weren't for the internet. And I just want to go back into the privacy thing. Like, for the people saying, oh, you could just learn in a library, like, I try not to hold it against them because it is just them being ignorant. And a lot of people don't understand, but ignorance isn't an insult. It's a thing. Ignorance just means lack of knowing. And all of us have a lack of knowing of something. But the biggest problem...
No, I know everything. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah, Martin doesn't have any ignorance, unfortunately. There is no advancing past this Martin. But the only... that'd be a good video game villain, I think. There is no advancing past this Martin. But anyways, so I think that when it comes to the trade of... Because when you log onto websites, you have to understand, you are not logging onto the internet, quote unquote. Just that. You are logging onto a company's service. Okay? If you want to run that service yourself, well, you can't. Sorry, it just takes way too much time. If you really think that what they're doing is unconstitutional or really bad, then sure, maybe a congressional hearing is a good thing. But it is not a good thing when it comes down to such things like they are using information. They're literally using the surface information that you posted about yourself on their website. That is just ridiculous. And the fact that people are complaining about that boggles my mind because You are using their service. If you think that they're doing something that's unconstitutional and backhanded, sure, but it's not backhanded. They're literally using the user information to make money. Now, Google is doing Google does do some shady stuff. Not all of it, but they do some shady stuff. Their advertising, the way their advertising works is really shady. They have bots that for every website with AdSense. They track everything you're doing. They track which websites you go, exactly what you do on the websites. It's because Google's such a big company that they can do this. They track where you go, they track what you do, and they give you those exact ads. You go on this website, and you can test this yourself. Go on a bunch of websites for a specific service, and you will get ads for that specific service. This is not a debatable fact. And that is a lot worse than, and if it's surface level stuff, it's fine. But sometimes, like, they access, like, they go into different places and they try to find out stuff about you. They have algorithms that build profiles about who you are so they can find out what best advertising they can target you for. I mean, seriously, that's kind of fucked up sometimes.
Yeah.
They literally think who you are.
I think, and something that was best described, unfortunately, by some crazy liberal guy on a college campus was, I don't think the Constitution is a relevant document right now. And
God.
That is the most ridiculous sentence I have ever heard.
Isn't the Constitution the most relevant document anytime?
Yeah, it is. But I think some people have a hard time understanding that, like, there are some people who want, just the act of saying that, that means the Constitution is still in place. Because, like, you're using your constitutional right to free speech to say that.
And people even say that free speech shouldn't be a thing, and that's ridiculous.
Oh yeah, and saying that at all is like,
no, that's so
hypocritical sentence.
Your free speech to say that there shouldn't be free speech.
Yeah.
Like,
but,
it's so
like, I think there are definitely a lot of people who just genuinely don't understand that not only do, that things change, obviously. I think everyone knows that. But I think people don't realize that just because some things change doesn't mean all things change.
Yeah. And I mean, you can't
not everything doesn't move linearly. Linearly.
Well, no, wait.
Literally.
I don't know.
Literally.
You mean like literal, as in like a literal?
Yeah, literally. Literal.
Is it like, maybe just say in a literal fashion?
Yeah, that. So, basically, I think, so something that's interesting to think about, something that I saw referenced, is if you took someone from 1970 to 2000, they would be completely, like, their mind would just be blown by all of the advances in technology and in culture. And if you took someone from 2000 to 2015, which is half that time, their mind would still be as blown. Which means, which proves the point that, like, if you, like, things don't always move at the same speed. Like, just because some things are changing in this amount of time doesn't mean this is going to as well. And right now, our culture is advancing faster than it ever has before. We're working to colonize Mars. Think about that. Like, that sentence, it's really hard to, in your brain, realize how huge that is. Like, and I think it's really interesting that in our culture, we put so much focus on people like Kim Kardashian, but don't put focus on people, well, we do
like
put
Elon
focus,
Musk.
but like people who are actually moving forward to change the world. Like, modern politics, the things that we currently consider our biggest issues, I'm probably going to get some hate for this. I don't really think they're our biggest issues. Like, I think our biggest issues are the issues that are actually a threat to our life, which is, like, possibility of a meteor hitting Earth or climate
Which could
change.
happen, I think, in the
Yeah.
it's like, and it's, I think there's like a prediction of, there's a possibility that a massive I don't know, is it a meteor when it enters the Earth's atmosphere, or is it an asteroid? I'm pretty sure an asteroid is what's
Maybe it's
floating.
an asteroid.
No, an asteroid is what's just in space and is moving around. A meteor is when it enters the Earth's atmosphere. So anyways, there's a massive asteroid that is heading towards Earth, and it might miss it. I think it's either in the late 2020s or I think something in 2030, in the not too distant future, relatively speaking. But there's a massive asteroid, and it's heading towards Earth, and it may or may not impact us. If it does, well, we still have countermeasures. Like we could, there are ideas of, like, there are a bunch of ideas from NASA about hitting it with a big enough object to put it in another direction. But the point is this. It's that the fact that it's even a possibility, and we're not talking about that as much, is a big deal. I'm not saying that international politics, that's not a big deal right now. That is a big deal right now.
Yeah.
But it's not the biggest deal.
Yeah. There are about a million other things, like not a million, but
Humanity
there are a
needs to
lot of
stop
other
looking
things that
at
I
it.
can think
Humanity
of.
needs to stop looking at our separate nation states, and it still can for certain things. But in the big picture, we need to look at humanity as a whole and how we're going to survive.
Yeah, like especially for something like, if we look at AI, which I know I bring up a lot, that's a real issue. Meteor, that's a real issue. Climate change, that's a real issue. Getting to Mars, that's something we need to be working for. Not like electric cars, that's something we need to be working for. Like, and I'm not saying that things like, so, I'm not saying that things like LGBTQ rights and like feminism and like racism and all that stuff isn't important issues to address. But like,
we're not saying that these issues shouldn't be addressed. We're not even saying that they should be addressed. We're just saying we need to also address this.
I think, especially considering while those problems are still relevant, they're very, 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 they're a lot better right now than they have been. And
Yeah.
like, death, like right now we're living in the safest time in humanity, in humanity's existence. At like the most peaceful time in humanity's existence.
The most tolerant time in humanity's existence.
Exactly. So there's a
most
lot of
advanced
the
time.
a lot of the issues that we're worrying about, while they're still a thing, they're a lot better than they were. And while that doesn't mean we shouldn't continue to strive to move forward with them.
And it doesn't mean you shouldn't. We're not saying that if you're gonna dedicate a career to like helping people or certain and one of the issues we've talked about, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do that. We're just saying also talk about this.
Yeah, we have far too little people worrying about these subjects than we should.
And if people are wondering, what do I do? What do I do? Well, just understand, just knowing about it expands humanity's collective consciousness.
Yeah, just talk to people about it.
Yeah,
like, just
or just
spread
know about it
information.
in general. At the very least, know.
And also, another thing to think about is we're so busy getting angry at each other for things.
We're all
like
on the same team.
this. But we're not, I don't think people understand how, in the grand scheme of things, how inconsequential something like which president you voted for is.
Yeah, we're not saying it's not important, and we're not saying you shouldn't discuss it, because it is an important issue. But
It's
in
an
the
important
grand
issue, and it's also an interesting issue to talk about.
That being said, to act like it's the biggest deal in the world and not to talk about other things, I mean, seriously.
I think the biggest fault in the world right now is that we don't pay attention to what each other has to say.
Yeah.
We get an idea in our head of what something should be, and then that's just what it is. Like, and we don't think about the consequences of that thought or like the logic of that thought, and we don't think about anything related to that. We just don't think about things. Like, we get something, we believe that something, and that something is just what it is in our head forever. And
Yeah.
That's so illogical and harmful to the all of humanity.
And I know everyone only has a limited amount of time to talk about these certain things, but that doesn't mean just knowing about it is something. Just use the bare minimum amount of time. And I'm not saying oh, we need to learn about this. Just knowing something, just educating yourself bare minimum actually increases humanity's collective consciousness. I mean, seriously, if we all did such a small thing like this, we'd have a much better population.
Okay.
I'm not saying Earth is in a good direction. I'm just saying,
Yeah. So, and we're gonna finish up now. I think today was a good episode. We would like to thank our sponsors, Nobody and Nobody, because we're not that big yet. And thanks for watching.
We would like sponsors.
Yeah, if you're interested in sponsoring, please contact
If you're
us.
interested in sponsoring us so we can talk to 5 people about something, then go ahead.
Yeah. So see ya in not next week, but the week after that, where we will be talking again. Hopefully we can get everyone on again. We haven't had an episode with everyone since the very first one. But no, we're definitely hoping.
Have we had an episode where Dylan's been on the entire thing? I mean, I swear to God.
Yeah, no, he was on last time. But anyways, we definitely enjoy that you enjoy this, hopefully.
Thank you
for we'd really appreciate it if you'd like and share, because
we could use the exposure.
We'd like the exposure, and we'd like to get our opinions out there into the world.
And thank you for participating in this expansion of human collective consciousness.
Yes. So thank you if you enjoyed this video, and also
even if you didn't, because
you
still
thanks for listening in general.
Thanks for listening, because you still expanded humanity's collective consciousness.
Yeah, and I hope you took something out of this that was worth taking. Goodbye.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Humanity has been on an epic journey of discovery, learning the truth about the world we live in. New discoveries about the true origins of humanity, ancient history, free energy, as well as the systematic corruption of world governments are now on the forefront of our daily reality. Is the world headed towards destruction based on control and power? Or is an opportunity now being presented to shift and uplift into a higher consciousness? My name is Mel V, co-founder and creative director of Conscious Consumer Network, an independent broadcast network that was launched on the 1st of January 2015. In the last 3 years, Conscious Consumer Network has broadcast over 2,800 shows in multiple languages, featuring guests from across the world, whilst creating media that is aimed at the creation of a free, fair, peaceful, just, sustainable world. Conscious Consumer Network provides full training and an interactive support network for all broadcasters, and we are always looking for inspiring and educational content.
Hi, this is Lady Liberty.
And this is Miro Siegel.
In 2018, Conscious Consumer Network has expanded to multiple broadcast locations, increasing our availability and reach across the world, remaining on the cutting edge of independent media. If we wish to create a better world, we must first create better media, geared towards real education instead of indoctrination.
You guys really are what changing the world is going to be about. It's educating kids at a grassroots level.
Having become a pillar of stability in the turbulent world of independent media, we have even more going on in 2018. Conscious Consumer Network is a publicly funded network, and we rely on all of you to keep us on the air. Show your support for independent media by donating to our 2018 Network Support Fund. Dare to seek a better world. Support independent media.